Okay, today on the podcast, I am joined by Jill Manuel, founder and communication strategist of JCat Group. Jill's a great follow on LinkedIn. I've been commenting and liking all of her stuff recently, so I figured, hey, let's meet up face to face and get this conversation out to some other people that might think it's good too. So, Jill, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Paul, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. So, just kind of set the stage. I kind of ask everybody the same thing at the beginning. If you can just give us a little bit about your background, your story. I know you've been in and out of local media organizations for a long time, but I'd just like to hear your background.
Well, first of all, again, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
I'm a, you know, 20 plus year veteran of newsrooms, working in national and local newsrooms. I've spent the last since 99 was my first job in local TV at WBBM in Chicago. And since then I've held a variety of roles, including I've been a news director in Chicago, in Sacramento, Cleveland, Ohio. I've worked for a lot of different media companies, and I founded my company JCat Group in I found it in 2018 and have been working on and off. So I specialize in helping newsrooms, media companies, and leaders communicate with modernity. In other words, understand how to communicate. And I just launched my newsletter called The Trust Shift. I launched it in December, and because I'm intensely interested in following this migration of trust and understanding and helping people understand what it means for them, because it has dramatic consequences for wherever you sit, and if you're a public communicator, this migration of trust has dramatic consequences.
I agree. I agree. I kind of sit in this middle space. I'm not a journalist. I don't claim to be a journalist, but I'm a little newer on the scene and it's just obvious that the trust field, I don't know what you would call it, has shifted. Could you talk a little bit more about the trust shift? Kinda like what are you putting out in that? It's a newish newsletter, I think. Like, what kinda content are we
Yeah.
reading? Like, what is somebody gonna get if they subscribe to that? And talk a little more about it.
If you subscribe to the Trust Shift, you can get basically my analysis, and also I interview a lot of people about what they're doing. So the kinds of topics I talk about the creator economy vis-a-vis journalism. I talk about why visibility is important for executives. I highlight creators that are, there's this big conversation between legacy journalists and creators about what constitutes a real journalist. Because you get a lot of legacy, like on LinkedIn or other platforms, who would argue that no, they're not. But then you've got a guy like I talked to for my Trust Shift edition today, Fernando Hurtado. He was a former NBC producer and creator. He created NBC, and he left a year ago to found In the Hyphen, which is a hyper local, deeply researched YouTube channel. But he has a presence on Instagram and on TikTok, that he focuses on serving content to the Latino population that speaks English. So this guy, though, has journalism credentials. He's worked in newsrooms. He went to USC. He's an adjunct at Annenberg. And I think that what you're seeing, people that have these legacy credentials then are moving into the creator side. And by I mean creator side, really what that is bringing a certain level of authenticity and personalization into a business and an industry that has had the voice of God. So I love talking to people who are doing innovative, interesting things in this space, because really, if you work in a local TV newsroom right now, or any kind of, whether it's or TV or print or any kind of a legacy business, that trust is below 30%. I mean, if you work in a newspaper, or no matter if you are a journalist, the latest Gallup poll shows that that your trust, the people that think you do a good job and that trust you, Americans, is below 30%. I mean, that's incredible. So, where did that trust go and how do you rebuild it?
Wow, yeah, I hadn't seen that, but
Right,
that's
that's a lot in that
yeah,
little
no,
cap.
I believe that.
Might cover a lot of stuff.
Less than 30% trust. There's only about one profession that has a lower approval rating than that, and it's members of Congress, I believe, and that's not saying much.
Correct. That's right.
That's not
And think
saying a whole
about
lot.
that.
Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah. I'm gonna have to subscribe to the newsletter. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I haven't. As much as I've been talking about how much I've been loving your content, but like your post from this morning, you said tune in at 5 p.m. is unnatural behavior. Nobody sets a mental reminder for TikTok. The content finds you. That's a great kind of distillation.
Right. I mean, so for a broadcast news local TV news station to say to withhold content and say, "Oh, but if you tune in at 5 o'clock, then withhold content," like say on TikTok, that's like not natural behavior for someone who is on TikTok.
No.
They'll never turn into the 5 o'clock news. That's the reality is that this migration of trust, migration of platforms, you know, and so, it used to be, Paul, that, that if you were a certain age, you would start watching broadcast TV. You would tune in because you've got the kids and a house and a job.
Hmm.
That is not happening because, now you've got, Gen Z, 30 and under, they trust creators as much as they trust legacy journalists. They are suspect of legacy journalists, which is amazing. I mean, so you've got this whole these all these emerging, Gen Z and Gen Alpha all grew up with cell phones, as soon as they popped out, they had a cell phone in their hand. That's really what's happening is that they don't have loyalty, they're just getting stuff in their feeds, it's coming to them, and so
Hmm.
you can't say, "Oh, and by the way, if you want more to this, go somewhere else." They get it all in one, in
Yeah.
one piece.
The metaphor I think of is I'm a child of the '90s, and I just remember sitting watching cartoons and commercial break. I'll go play for something for a minute. I have 4-year-old twin boys now, and God forbid they have to watch a 15-second ad on YouTube or something. They are screaming bloody murder. From
Yeah,
my own life, that's kind of like how I think of it is how,
right.
need to be looking at these things. When you said, that the trust is in creators stuff, would you say it goes both ways where journalists, trained journalists, what I'm taking away from it is that there's a lot they can learn from the creator economy. Would you also say that there's something to be learned from people coming from a organic creator side about like journalistic rigor? And do you see
Oh,
things
yeah,
coming from that
I mean,
side too? Yeah.
it is a definitely a two-way street, and I think that my my argument is that the perfect amalgamation would be someone with a creator sensibility that has a legacy journalist rigor. And you see that's starting to happen. You see, for example, the Wall Street Journal, I was just reading another post about on LinkedIn about how they've started this creator lab, this
Hmm.
talent lab, for their talent to get into vertical video. The Times just hired, 8 video creators to join them. So it's starting to happen. I think the sweet spot is going to be accessible people, actual humans, because people I think that with AI especially, there is a thirst for humans,
Hmm.
and I think the way, let's say, local TV has evolved over the years into this voice of God and it's a one-way conversation. Whereas these creators, they're like, Fernando, when I talked all about his comments and he's in the comments and he's responding to people, he's connecting. So I think that there is a model there that is trustworthy information with the sensibility of a creator.
That's great. That's what I thought you might say, but
That's what I think.
yeah, no, I totally agree. You've talked about Fernando and some other kind of mentions of people doing things, and this is one of my favorite things I've seen on LinkedIn from you. Just about younger creators, I guess we're calling them, who understand trust and attention in 2026. Can you talk about
Yep.
maybe some other specific examples or maybe lessons that local publishers could take away? Yeah.
Yeah, so, So in my this is my I wrote about this last week in the Try Shift and also on LinkedIn, and I profiled 6 creators who I spent a lot of time looking at local creators, and because we all know about the ones that have millions of followers, like the Dylan Pages and the Aaron Parnas, V Spahar, the ones on TikTok that I've also profiled, the really big ones. These are the ones that are innovating in the legacy space. And so at the top of the list is a creator in Nashville. His name is Levi Ishmael. And Levi is a investigative journalist with the Scripps station in Nashville, but he also has an independent TikTok channel called Nashville News that he created with a colleague. So that's not affiliated with this news organization. And so this guy, I was so impressed with what he's doing on TikTok. He is, his demeanor, it's just really like having a conversation with your neighbor about news, but he's sourcing it. He's reporting. I called and this is happening, as we're speaking, and he's just very relaxed about it. So, but he's still is reporting the news. I mean, but he's doing it in a way that's so much more accessible. And I think that's something that, my daughter who's 24, who's been a real driver in my my interest, and because of her, I became a creator on TikTok in 2023. And I learned so much from that process, and I was so legacy that, I mean, I just didn't understand what was going on, and
Right.
I really wanted to learn about it. So all those experiences have really helped me understand this dynamic. But she said to me once, she goes, "Mom, I don't want somebody in a tie telling me what to think." And that really stuck with me. I'm thinking, wow, okay. Because I couldn't understand how could these these people on TikTok, and some have news backgrounds, some didn't. I thought, how could this be that this guy, Dylan Page, has, I think he's got 20 million followers on TikTok. The
Wow.
guy cleaned houses for a living. How could that be? But then when I start thinking about what's happening, how, he's got to be doing something that 20 million people are connecting to. And you know what? He's really human. He, you know, when he messes up, he admits it, and he's vulnerable, and so I just think that, there things have really, really shifted from, you know, this is the authority to, talk instead of talking at me, I want you I want to have a conversation. I want you to
Mhm.
talk with me.
That's great. Yeah. What it I didn't have this in the prep, but when you're thinking about this kind of new trust economy, what do you want to whatever you want to call it? Is there one that stands out head and shoulders above the rest, like TikTok over YouTube, over Instagram, over are there other
You mean
channels? What
platform?
yeah, platform
You
are you
know,
talking mostly vertical video? Just can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm talking, vertical video, but
Yeah.
YouTube is an enormous destination.
Mhm.
But something that's been very interesting to me, and you should check this guy Jack Brewster out on LinkedIn. He has
Rings a bell.
founded
Rings a bell. Yeah.
yeah, an app called Newsreel. And
Yeah.
so his mission is to really empower Gen Z and, without using algorithms that are big tech algorithms, because, basically, we're just accepting the fact that we're captive to their algorithms. Jack is questioning that. And he's also has built this product that it's a standalone product because he doesn't believe because the algorithms they're controlled. I mean, TikTok serves getting served up. So, but that's really the system that we have. But I think that, it's just a matter of, Instagram, it's just a matter of kind of demographics, really. But
Right.
YouTube is the most watched, and YouTube Shorts have really increased a lot. But, I would say TikTok, though, the story of TikTok is it's amazing how fast it's grown. And, Pew tracks all of these platforms. It is the fastest growing platform for news that they have ever seen adopted. Facebook took a long time because, Facebook started in the mid, aughts, and
Mhm.
people just weren't, as it wasn't all about you were still watching television.
Nobody got it yet.
And
Nobody knew what was gonna happen yet, I feel like, too,
right,
yeah.
so but it took but TikTok, oh my goodness, how quickly so it's become, basically the number one destination for news, but it's not you don't go there for news. News comes to you because 'cause you're on the platform already. So there are lots of and there's a lot of worrisome things about this, not the least of which is that you've got a whole generation that have never built a news habit. We built
Mhm,
news habits, right?
mhm.
No, you probably what station in Denver did you watch? Like,
Fox, yeah, yeah, like you say, Fox 31, there's a couple of them
you
there. I
know,
read the Rocky Mountain News, Denver Post growing up, so yeah.
right. And then also your parents probably watched local news and, so, you have that, there's kind of a legacy, not to toss that word around, but your kids, but do you watch the local newscast right now? Do you sit
N
down at 5 o'clock?
Nope. Actually, before kids, during lockdown, me and my wife had a bit of a ritual, but not since having our twins, no. But during lockdown,
Right.
my wife and I were like, "Well, we're here." We drink our coffee and watch the morning. That was about the last time probably that I sat down and
Right.
watched a morning daily broadcast. Yeah.
Right. So, so what's happening is that, these habits are not being built. And so, but also, and also the affinity to trusted news sources is not being built. In other words, if something happens, I'm going to go to the places that I trust the most. And that's news or, I'm going to go to AP or wherever it is,
Mhm.
whatever your choice is, but you trust this. They've shown you time and time again that they're trustworthy and you think they do a good job. But now, that's what happens then now is that, someone sees on TikTok something and they want to know more, they Google it or they now use, AI or Perplexity or whatever their tool is to get more and whatever link shows up first, maybe that's the one that they're so there's not that loyalty and affinity, and there's not habits. And I think so there's not news literacy that's happening. And I think that I find that very troubling.
Yeah, and the other downside of, having it served via algorithm is, say you're already inclined one way or another politically, and you see like a story that comes up,
Right.
there's plenty to go around right now, a story that comes up, and you like it or you watch it a few times, and the algorithm tracks that, then it feeds you stuff a little further down this rabbit hole, and a little further, and pretty soon, you don't think birds are real or whatever this, whatever rabbit hole you
Right.
wind up going down.
Right.
That's a tamer one actually that I've heard, but that's the real scary thing of not having that news habit or yeah, that stuff built up.
But, I mean, I think that, as a news director, and, I've had really big teams and we've done a lot of news and You know, the one thing I always talked about is diversity of sources. You've got to look at everything. You can't just go with one source. You've got to kind of take a look and see, how people are different journalists, different organizations are framing the same story. Like, one big example is the October 7th attacks by Hamas on Israel.
Mhm,
Okay, so depending on, notwithstanding all everything that's happened since then, depending on kind of where you sit on the spectrum, there were a variety of places you could go to get your news. Are you going to Haaretz, which is, it's kind of a liberal, Israeli, or a more conservative, where Hamas are terrorists, or
mhm.
you're going to go to Al Jazeera, where, you know, these Palestinians are captives. So
Yep.
I just and it's all kind of how things are framed. So I just feel like, you've got to always go to a couple of different places. And what worries me really, Paul, is that these habits are not, these are not habits that are being built currently by a younger generation. I think that's part of what Jack Brewster is trying to do. He's trying to take the magic of the algorithm, kind of a social media app, and he does quizzes and gamifies, and you
Hmm.
get points if you get news right. So I think that that's a really innovative approach, and I'm not sure how widely it's adopted. I know that he's targeting. institutions of journalism and higher learning. So, but there is a lot going on right now as far as trust is concerned.
That's yeah. Um, man, this is why I wanted to have you on. I love your takes on all this stuff. I agree with
I could talk all day.
Okay, I had this question thrown in here because I think this audience, which is mostly people in legacy, I guess. Now I'm feeling funny about that word, local newsrooms, but and I think this, you've worked in more than I have, but I think this could be an issue some people face. If you were in an organization that was kind of hesitant to go all in on new media, TikTok, YouTube, or whatever, what would you suggest, like some baby steps you could enact to kind of get the ball rolling, get maybe the higher ups that have been there forever to see the light a little bit? Curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question because that's where what you just described is where I think a lot of news organizations are, a lot of individual newsrooms, and edicts could come from the corner office that we need to do X, Y, and Z, but the operationally for it to happen, that's all the people, the middle, the people who are doing the work, and so I would take, like, for example, do what the Houston Chronicle is doing, which is they partnered with a local creator who was on Instagram. He was a food creator, and they developed a relationship with him, and they partnered with him to bring his audience into their orbit. And these are people who probably have never accessed any of the Chronicle stuff before. So I think that that could be just an easy way to kind of dip your toe in the water. Is there a local creator that you could partner with? And that you could, but it's got to be a good fit. And also, there's so many details that you've got to work out, like how are you going to compensate? But what the Chronicle's doing is they're treating these people like freelancers, like a freelance editor, or if you're a local news organization, I'm sure you hire freelancers. This could be a way to experiment outside your organization, but bring it in so that people can start to get used to the idea of having creators be part of the news operation, because I think what you see many times is that a lot of legacy folks just don't believe creators are really going to serve the audience. They don't believe that they're not trained, and they don't have the credentials and the experience necessary. But, I think that if you gotta help your teams take a bigger look at things, which is this whole trust thing. Okay. So, Fernando had a really good analogy that I'm gonna write about in a future trust shift or future post, is that it's like having a street where everybody is going to shop, and your business doesn't feel the need to be on this street. Even though, and you're not, just because you just don't, "Nah, I'm not gonna do that." Even though that's where the customers
Right.
are.
That's a
So you gotta
yeah.
help it's all about culture shift. You've gotta help your teams understand why it's important. Bring creators in. Maybe there is a Gen Z in your newsroom already. Doesn't matter what position they're in. Anybody can do vertical video. It doesn't have to be reporters or, anchors on TV, or leadership in any newsroom. It can be somebody who's your photo editor, or who is your, on your assignment desk or whatever. If there's somebody that really wants to do it, then, make time for them to try. You got to start somewhere. You've got to, I think so, so you've got to get people used to the idea, but also you've got to figure out ways to be where your audience is. And so use metrics to determine what the next best step might be. What platform besides your legacy are you getting traction on? Then try a few things on that platform, and don't just give up because, what's the analogy about bamboo? Bamboo grows for 4 years until it pops up.
Hmm.
And you've got and but that doesn't mean you don't have to nurture it and water it and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know
And
that.
then all of a sudden, you're tending this thing for 4 years, and all of a sudden it poop. So, you can't, don't give up, but just try small things about that aren't heavy lifts, that are, that might be, and also could be a really good path for growth for somebody. Maybe there's a young kid on your team, that really sharp young kid that, hey, can we try this? And it gives them and they can teach some of these other folks who may not really understand these platforms how to do it. They're native to these platforms.
Mhm.
There's a group called Lad Bible. Have you heard of them?
Sounds familiar. I haven't
It's
looked into it too much.
Unilad. They Lad Bible. It's a UK organization, and they've been around for a long time. It's one of the most iconic like brands for engagement in the world.
Hmm,
And I don't know where they sit now, but if you look at like websites that have the most traffic, they're always at the
huh.
top. If you look at like chart any metric like Chartbeat or any of these, about where the traffic is going, even like on social media and on number one Facebook. And so what they did, they hired 16-year-olds to help them build their Instagram strategy. I mean, so that's kind of because you've got to go to people that understand these platforms and that can teach you and can help you, integrate these strategies. I think that's a really smart way to go.
Yeah, I agree. You don't even need equipment. Find somebody under 25 with a smartphone. In other words, anyone under 25. That's all you need is like a modern iPhone or a modern phone, and
Right.
they can figure it out. How to get something, at least get started. Yeah.
But, really, the local news people on any platform are the original influencers.
Hmm.
They're the original ones to create content, embed with communities, and, and do all the things that audiences say they want now, make those connections. But, news has become very commoditized, very, very arm's length.
Hmm.
So I think that, no, regardless of what platform you're working on, there's got to be ways to integrate some kind of vertical video into your operation, even if it's one a week. Do it, learn, and and I'm a big proponent of kind of this beginner's mindset. Learn, and then because if you don't start, you're going to miss the boat completely.
Yep. Great words. So this I've kind of been asking everybody this question lately. Flash forward 5 years. Like you see how things are going, you've seen how they change over the last 20, 25 years, whatever it is. Where do you see the local media ecosystem, if you had to make a guess on the current trajectory in say 2030, 2031 now, I guess it's a new year. Yeah. Kind of a big question, sorry, but I'd love to hear it.
Well, I think it really is the question
Yeah.
because everybody, the demise of local news has been predicted for a long time, but
Mhm.
we are seeing that, we're seeing these huge news deserts. We're seeing, I don't know, do you have a number for how many, local newspapers have shuttered in the last
Thousands, I think. Over a
1,000?
thousand, I think, in the last year. I forget the number,
Yeah.
but yeah, them
You're
came out a
seeing
couple
you're
months ago, yeah.
seeing, massive consolidation in the end. So there are a lot of pain points because economically, it's hard to support local media. Like, here I'm in Iowa City and, the Cedar Rapids Gazette was employee owned. Now it was bought by like some company in Minnesota. I
Hmm.
forget the name of it that, and so you're seeing these local, it's no longer viable. And then you've got all these journalism funding models that are they really working?
It's a big question. It's a big question that comes up on this show a lot, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think, but I think systemically, is the current model set up to succeed in the future? I think that's the real question. Systemically, is it, because, all the systems are geared toward, your legacy platforms, radio, your website, your TV, TV, and now, Facebook or whatever. So, I see in 5 years, things are really accelerating, I think, more than they have in the last, I'd say 4 or 5 in the last 5 years. So I think in 5 years' time, you are gonna see a dramatic difference in you're gonna see huge consolidation, but I think you're gonna see an explosion of people like Fernando Hurtado or people like, you know, th Levi Ishmael and some of the people you're gonna see this big explosions of these creators that are occupying these niches, because really that's what's happening. Everything is kinda going into a niche, and
Mhm.
unfortunately but I also, though, think that you're still gonna see some of these big news organizations are gonna still continue to function like AP or the Times. I mean, the Times is increasing subscribers or Fox News Channel, and Fox is very innovative. They've got a creator lab now. I mean,
Mhm.
they have done some really interesting things. And so I think that the companies that are taking action now to be innovative and to be viable in the future are the ones that are going to still be standing. So I don't see all legacy outlets going away, because how could that be? Because so many of these creators are aggregators who are, they're taking other stuff, like they're taking AP, Wire, or taking, stories from, KUSA or wherever. But that's what local news does. We're also aggregators. So I feel like we're gonna get to a place where there's going to be individuals, but there's got to be some kind of a unifying something, organization, or banding creators together to get the economies of scale, but also of kind of oversight, those kinds of things. So I think but I also, excuse me, think local media companies are having can have an increasingly difficult time keeping good people.
Yeah, I know. That's a tough one too. That's a whole different podcast, really.
So that's kind of a rambling
No, no, I
answer. I
liked
think
it.
it's gonna look a lot different.
Yeah.
I just don't know exactly how, but I do think that the number of people who were in legacy are now leaving and having successful careers,
Mhm.
or at least trying to, some do, but a lot of economics are tough, make it tough
Yep.
for creators who are just starting out. But I do think that those models are going to continue to shift.
Yep. I agree. This has been
I
great,
mean, could there be a channel that's all creators?
right? Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. So I think there could there be like a channel where it's all creators, but they're just basically all, you know, focused on a geographical area,
Mhm.
or,
Yep.
you know, and
Yeah.
also too, another really interesting something that's happening, and you should talk to Todd Lanfried, who he's the head of N2, and N2, is in, Denver. They did their pilots for their streaming newscasts, and they've got this whole new economic model that is all built into streaming. So you go on Netflix and see your local news. So I would highly recommend Todd would be a really great person for you to talk to, because he argues that the economic model is completely broken, and that systemically it is not currently set up to be successful. And so the streaming model, if you follow the same model as like a Netflix,
Mhm.
that pay you up front or pay 75%, and so he's building out this whole model where every part of the country could be served, and you could watch it on your phone or on your TV or wherever on a streaming platform.
Yeah, I think do you know Carol Wood?
I don't know. I know Carol's involved. I don't know her
Yeah,
personally, but
I've
I know.
I've been having some conversations with her. I was like, "This sounds just
Yeah,
like what
she
she's
is. She,
working
she
on."
would be perfect, and
Yeah,
they've
so
done that.
I was wondering if that
Yeah,
was the same thing you were talking about. It sounds
same
very
one. Yep.
similar. Yep, okay.
She is. Yeah, she's based, I think, in Denver,
Yep,
and she's
yep.
so I would highly, and Todd's really good too. You could have both of them on. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a really, really interesting model,
yeah, it
and
is, yeah.
I talked to Todd quite a bit, because I think that we're very aligned when it comes to the need for change and the need for fresh thinking in this space.
That's great. Jill, this has been great. Where can people find you? What do you want me to link to online or put out there? Your website, all
You
this
can
stuff.
link to my newsletter, Trust Shift, and it's free. You just have to sign up, and then also follow me on LinkedIn. I do all kinds of stuff on LinkedIn. I post almost every single day about media, also, but just about executive visibility. And as such as executives, everyone needs to be visible on LinkedIn because if you're looking to do anything and to build trust, that's the place to do it.
That's awesome. Well, that's where we connected too. So I'll link to all
Yep.
that. And Jill, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Oh, it was my pleasure,
Yeah.
and if you have any follow-up questions, just let me know.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.